So here's the big question. How do you sell heavy-duty parts in a digital world? That's the question, and this is the place where you're going to find the answers. My name is Jamie Irvin, and we are live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to another edition of Jamie Irvin Live. It is Thursday, August 19th, 2021, and I am so glad to be here to continue the conversation we've been having all about how to sell heavy-duty parts in a digital world. This live stream is sponsored by our podcast, The Heavy Duty Parts Report. If you would like to check out our weekly podcast episodes, head over to heavydutypartsreport.com. There you can check out the audio and video versions of the podcast interviews that come out on Monday, and then our live interviews that come out on Friday. Looking forward to having you join us over at heavydutypartsreport.com. This is a live broadcast. Therefore, if you would like to comment or ask a question, by all means, please do so. I will do my best to get to you before the end of the broadcast. Today, we are going to be talking about adding e-commerce to your heavy-duty parts website. Now, in our previous live stream, we talked about the 4 pillars of a digital sales transition. So if you're a manufacturer of heavy duty parts or a distribution company that sells heavy duty parts in retail stores and warehouses to the general public, you've been using a traditional distribution channel for decades. It has been very, very successful in heavy-duty parts to have manufacturers sell to their distributors. Distributors send that product to retail stores, and retail stores to sell it to the people who need to buy those parts and install them on commercial vehicles. We live in 2021. The world is changing. There are a lot of drivers that are impacting whether or not a company would consider incorporating a digital sales channel into their business. We are, as an industry, a little late to the party. There are many industries that have already made the digital transition. They have transformed their companies to fully integrated digital companies. Many of us in the truck parts world, in the trucking industry at large, have not yet done so. And so I laid out last week the 4 pillars, and we talked about online content, generating traffic, getting people to your site. Today, we're going to continue with the second pillar, which is, of course, the actual e-commerce platform on your website. Now, adding e-commerce may sound like a simple matter of just picking which platform we want to use. Shopify, Gen Alpha, Phase Zero. There's many e-commerce platforms out there. Which one are we going to choose? Well, once we've chosen that, we link it up to our ERP, we load up some stuff onto that e-commerce site, and now people can buy off of our website. It should be that easy, but is it in fact that easy? Well, the first barrier that I see most people run into when they start to think about e-commerce is disrupting the traditional distribution channel. So manufacturers right away are very nervous about e-commerce because they don't want their distributors to think that they're going direct. And it's very important to understand that e-commerce can be set up where a login is required, having an account is required, and that is considered B2B e-commerce. And manufacturers should be using B2B e-commerce. People who sell to the open public, to the end users, the owner operators, the vehicle owners themselves, the fleets, the repair shops who are fixing this equipment, they can use a B2C model where their e-commerce is open to anyone who visits the website, and anybody can buy. Now, getting your head around that distinction is one of the barriers that people need to really understand. They need to understand what form of e-commerce they're going to use before they start deciding which platform to use and starting the work of figuring out how to get it all working on your website. Now, I want you to think about why you need this. Amazon, of course, is the world's leader in e-commerce. And Jeff Bezos has said many times that what they're trying to build at Amazon is the most customer-centric company in the world, not e-commerce company, the most customer-centric company in general in the entire world. And if we look at their massive success, I think that being customer-centric is an essential part of being in business in the 21st century. Now, has it ever not been? Of course not. But these new digital tools allow us to create environments that are even more easy to do business with us than perhaps in the past. The translation of being customer centric is all about the ease in which it is to do business with you, removing the friction and the barriers. And that's really what e-commerce is all about. And when you think about that perspective with e-commerce about being customer centric, it's a strong motivator for us to get involved in it. But what advantages are there to the company who offers e-commerce when selling heavy duty parts? Well, there's many, but I wanted to review a couple. I just want everybody to be in the right frame of mind before we continue our conversation and get into some of the details here. I just want you to be thinking about this in the right perspective. That's why I'm focusing on this first. And this is a step that I think a lot of people, they just step right over, and when they do want to do e-commerce, they just kind of jump into it, and they haven't thought through all of these things beforehand, which really this information informs your overall strategy. So being customer centric is an advantage to the customer, but what advantages come to the company who takes that approach and leverages digital tools to make them more customer centric? Well, I've come up with three. One, e-commerce is going to help your business with your economy of scale. So you have an aging demographic of people working at your parts company. Doesn't matter if you're a manufacturer or distributor. I know that's true. You have more people retiring and taking decades of valuable experience with them. And it is a struggle to find new people to replace them. And of course, when someone leaves with 40 years of experience, you're just not going to be able to find another person with 40 years of experience unless they're the same age, and they're going to retire soon too. So e-commerce allows you to alleviate pressure off of your salespeople, off of your parts counter, off of your customer service department, because it will move some of your existing purchases from email ordering, phone calls, and it'll move it to online purchasing. So this is going to help your business be more productive with less people. Kind of important in the situation that we're in, where more people are leaving the industry than coming in. So e-commerce will enable you to do more with less. That's one big advantage. So not only are you being more customer centric, make it easier for your customers to buy from you, you're actually alleviating one of the big problems everybody in heavy duty parts and trucking has, which is it's really hard to find good people. So some people say to me, what if the what if I don't get new sales from my e-commerce platform? What if I only get existing sales, people who are already buying from me, and they just kind of move 30% of their purchases over to e-commerce? And I say, well, that's going to help your business with the economy of scale, and it's going to make your business more efficient and more profitable. It's a good thing. Okay, so we've had a comment come in. Matthew Mosley, the company that can take e-commerce and combine it with historical knowledge of its people could rule the marketplace. Matthew, thank you so much for commenting. I think that is a very important point. We're going to be talking next week, Matthew, about alignment. And I would love to have you come back next week and check out our live stream next Thursday, because when we talk about alignment, we're going to touch on exactly what you're talking about, marrying the digital tools and the advanced tools that are now available with the historical knowledge and the traditional ways that we've gone to marketplace, and bringing those all together. Now that is phase 3. Let's get back to just talking about e-commerce. So one of the second big advantages that I see is, like I said, initially, even if only existing customers use your e-commerce platform, there is an immediate benefit to your company because it alleviates pressure, right? Less phone calls, less emails, all of that work that goes on now, there's going to be less of it. So that's good. But the second opportunity and big advantage to a company that adopts e-commerce right now is that right now they are probably limited, especially if you own, let's say, 4 stores across 2 states. you're kind of limited to the geographical area that your delivery trucks and your salespeople can serve. Now, if you're a big national company, you don't have that problem. But if you're an independent, if you're a smaller company, you definitely have that issue. And even if you are a big national company, regardless of the situation, the minute that you turn your e-commerce store on, you now have potential to serve a larger group of customers. Customers who currently don't do business with you may start to do business with you because of activating your e-commerce site. Again, if you're customer centric and you're doing a better job than your competitor of serving, that reputation is going to grow and people may buy from you who normally would not have purchased from you. So, big advantage one, economy of scale, reducing the pressure on your parts counter and your people who are working for you. Big advantage number two of e-commerce, accessing a larger group of potential customers. This is really important. The other thing that's very interesting with that, and I'm going to call this number three, but it's almost like a 2A and 2B from my previous point, is that as younger customers become responsible for purchasing decisions, the old relationships that we had in this industry may start to dissolve, right? Someone you've known for 30 years and have been buying from you for 30 years, and all of a sudden they retire. And someone who doesn't really know you replaces them, and they may decide to not continue buying from you because maybe one of your competitors is offering an easier way to do business or a way that the younger person is more comfortable doing business with, i.e., using e-commerce. I had one person tell me that they have a customer who literally is next door, and when the baby boomer who had done business with them for 30 years retired and the replacement came in, they stopped phoning, they stopped emailing, they stopped walking over and visiting to make purchases like the older purchaser did. And instead, they would order through the e-commerce platform, even though they were next door. So the younger digital natives, they are interested in doing business using these tools. So if you have an e-commerce platform, if you've focused on being customer centric, if you've made it easier for people to do business with you, that younger demographic as they come into the industry, albeit fewer than the ones leaving, are going to be more likely to do business with you. So these are the big advantages of getting involved in e-commerce. Now, let's start talking a little bit about the things that you need to know when you now have been convinced that this is what you need to do. So, the first thing is before you even consider what e-commerce platform you're going to set up on your website, you need to understand two acronyms. The first one is PIES, PIES, and the second one is ACES, ACES. You can go over to autocare.org and you can search AutoCare PIES, AutoCare ACES, and you can learn all about these standards for data. So you have parts information in your ERP. Maybe you're using Carmack Fusion, maybe you're using Acumatica or some other ERP, but you've got all your parts information, your descriptions, your part numbers, your pricing. But that isn't necessarily all the information that is required. To do this with e-commerce, there's additional information that is very, very important. PIE's information is basically how much does it weigh, what's the image of the product, what's the dimensions of the product, and other industry standard information that is required for that individual part number. By getting your data in line with the PIES standard and the ACES, which is the year, make, model, and engine, if applicable. If you can get your data standardized with these two standards, your system is going to integrate with other people's systems much better, and your data is going to be accurate, and it's going to integrate with whatever e-commerce platform you choose. Now, some friends of ours at the show, at the Heavy Duty Parts Report, over at Diesel Laptops, have partnered with OptiCat. So Diesel Parts, the app that is made by Diesel Laptops, and OptiCat, they've made a partnership and they work with manufacturers to be able to help them get their data in line and to be able to get ready for this next step. So if you're a manufacturer and you'd like to work with them, by all means, just reach out to me. I'm going to be including my email address in a moment. You can just send me an email and I will connect you with them. If you're a parts distribution company, then you need to also get your data in line. And Diesel, the people at Diesel Laptops with their Diesel Parts platform, they have some additional advanced tools that could be very useful to you. And again, I can connect you with them, and we can help you. Also, I'm a consultant and I work with companies on this entire whole project of moving from the traditional distribution channel over to a digital sales channel. So if you'd like my help directly, you can also contact me directly and we can talk about your situation, and I'll put together a package and I'll bring in some of these contacts that I have to assist you, and we will be able to get you to where you want to go with your digital sales channel. Now, once you've got your data ready, then the next step really is to decide which e-commerce platform you're going to use. Now, I have friends over at Gen Alpha. They are friends of the show. We are very, very high on what Gen Alpha offers. Now, that's GEN, like generation. So it's GEN, Gen Alpha. And they have a very robust, very, very advanced e-commerce platform that is specifically designed for heavy duty parts manufacturers and parts distribution companies. So it is tailored perfectly to your needs. But if you want to kind of dip your toe in the water, there are some other options. And for example, Shopify has many different levels, right from entry level all the way up to an enterprise solution that's available to you. Many people use the Shopify platform as well, and there's some other platforms out there. So you're going to have to do your research. As a consultant, I often help companies make decisions, and sometimes, I want them to go with something like what Gen Alpha offers, and other times it just wouldn't make sense. So it just really depends on you, and that's something we can help you with. So you've got your data in order. You've decided which platform you're going to use. Now you have to populate all of that data into the e-commerce platform. You have to get it all set up. You have to have it integrated with your ERP. You have to have everything ready to go. You also have to have your shopping cart and your credit card processing or payment processing provider all linked and set up. There is many steps to doing this, and it's not a short project. This is a more of a marathon, and oftentimes I recommend to companies, you have to do this in stages. You may have 100,000 SKUs that you sell, but it's probably not the best thing to do is to put all 100,000 up front. A lot of times it's this where you put the most popular items that you want to sell, or not necessarily just by volume the most popular, but the easiest items to ship, and also maybe products that are really going to serve your best customers in a very specific way. So there's sometimes it makes more sense to look at gaps in the marketplace and to fill those first, and then to fill in all the other products that you sell at a later date. Something you have to think about is it's not all about the digital world either, because an e-commerce store, although it is not just a electronic version of a retail store, it is not a one-for-one comparison. There's many different things you have to think about for a retail store that is very different from an e-commerce platform and an e-store. But once an order has been placed, there is the offline system, what I call customer fulfillment or order fulfillment, that has to be thought through very carefully, because if someone orders online and then it doesn't show up for 3 days, that's a problem, especially when the person needs it to get a truck back on the road. So downtime, because our customers are very sensitive to downtime, the order fulfillment system that is matched up to the e-commerce store is very important, and there's some critical decisions that need to be made there. And what I have found with most of the people that I work with is that there has been a system put in place that has worked for a long time in the traditional sense, but it doesn't always match up to the expectations of a fully customer centric digital company. And so there's some updates that need to be done there. So as you can see, last week we talked about online content, we talked about marketing, we talked about data. Now again, we're talking about data again. We're talking about internal business systems. We're talking about linking platforms and getting it to go on your website. And there's options with your website. I didn't even talk about that. You can have it built directly into your site. You can have it so that it's a buy button and it links to a subdomain of your existing website. There is so many considerations. And this is where a lot of times I think over the last, let's say, 5 years, many of our people in the heavy duty parts industry have kind of approached it and then backed away. They know they need to do it, but then it's so overwhelming and they back away. But all I can say about that is the longer that you wait, the harder it's going to be to get in, and the less opportunity there will be. Because what happens is that as people capture the traffic that exists and they capture those customers, it's going to be very difficult for you to come along later and then take that person away from someone else. You know, that whole idea that it's 6 times more expensive to get a new customer than to keep an existing customer, I think maybe that 6 times could be triple that when you're talking about online. Because think about it. If a person has found an e-commerce platform that sells the heavy duty parts they need, it's super easy to do business with them. The pricing is competitive, the service is amazing, the delivery is fast. It's going to be really hard for you to differentiate yourself against that, even if you do all of those same things. So the people who get in and build it now are going to be the ones who are, I think, going to be able to hold on to that market share for a much longer period of time. And anybody who comes later, it's going to be even more difficult for them to find ways to differentiate themselves. So the time is now. It is urgent that you start down this road if you haven't. And once again, if you would like to work with me, if you'd like to get some help from me, if you'd like to be introduced to some of the resources I've mentioned in today's live stream, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to send me an email, jamie@heavydutypartsreport.com. Send me an email. We'll book a time to meet via video conference call. We'll talk about your situation. I'll help you to build a scope of work that will enable you to take the necessary steps to get your online content in order, to get your traffic growing on your site, to get your e-commerce platform set up, do all the steps necessary. I can help you with all of that. So send me an email, jamie@heavydutypartsreport.com. I would love to talk to you about that and try to find a way to help you to make the digital transformation, to establish your digital sales channel. Now, Matthew, I hope you're still watching. And you commented a little while ago that the company that can take e-commerce and combine it with historical knowledge of its people could rule the marketplace. And I mentioned when you commented that next week we're going to talk about sales alignment. And this is absolutely essential. There is this idea that some people have developed that when you make the change or the transition to a digital sales channel, it means that you have to abandon the traditional distribution channel you've been using for decades. That could not be further from the truth. We just have to look at our cousin industry, the automotive industry, to understand that. And we need to understand that there is a process that has to happen, that once the e-commerce platform has been set up, the e-store is working, there is an alignment process for your outside salespeople, your inside salespeople, where e-commerce does not replace them, but rather the two departments start working together to drive more results for the business. That's what we're going to talk about next week. I look forward to having you back on our live stream next week. Thank you so much for tuning in. And don't forget, head over to heavydutypartsreport.com to check out our podcast. Thanks so much for watching. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.